Chapter 1. The Night the Stars Bowed. The Birth of Siddhartha, Queen Maya's Dream, and the Omen of a Luminous Child. Night had fallen softly over the ancient kingdom of Kapilavastu, and the world seemed to drift in a hush deeper than usual, as if every tree and stone were holding its breath. A thin mist curled along the palace gardens, glowing faintly beneath the moonlight. Fireflies drifted like wandering sparks of gold, weaving their small paths between lotus ponds and sleeping flowers. Inside the royal palace, Queen Maya lay resting in her chamber, her breath rising and falling in tranquil waves. The silken curtains trembled with the slightest breeze, as though invisible fingers brushed past them. Outside, guards walked their quiet rounds. Servants whispered. Lamps flickered with small amber flames. And yet, something felt different, as if the sky itself were waiting. The moon was unusually bright that night, round, shining, and unnervingly calm. Its light spilled over the palace roof, down the marble steps, and into the queen's chamber like a soft silver river. Even the stars seemed to glow more intensely, arranging themselves in patterns unseen before. Queen Maya, unaware of the shimmering heavens above, drifted into a deep and luminous dream. The dream of the white elephant. In her dream, she found herself standing in a vast meadow embroidered with flowers the color of dawn. The air felt impossibly gentle, like the breath of a newborn. Petals fell slowly from the sky, swirling around her in elegant spirals. A warm breeze carried the scent of jasmine and sandalwood. Maya felt light, as if she were floating rather than standing. Then the earth shimmered, and the sky opened like a great curtain of silk. From beyond that veil of light, she saw a radiant white elephant descending toward her. Its tusks shone like polished pearls. Its eyes glowed with a serene wisdom older than mountains. Draped across its back was a celestial cloth stitched with constellations, each star twinkling as if alive. The elephant walked with a calm grace, each step creating ripples of light across the meadow. It paused before the queen, lowering its head in a gesture of immense reverence. Then, lifting a blooming lotus in its trunk, it placed the flower gently into her hands. The moment her fingers closed around the lotus petals, a wave of warmth rushed through her. The world turned bright, bright like the center of a rising sun, yet soft enough not to burn. She felt a presence enter her, gentle as moonlight, powerful as a rising tide. The white elephant stepped into her, dissolving into pure light. Suddenly, the meadow flickered away, and the queen awoke, her heart steady, her breath peaceful, her body filled with an indescribable calm. She opened her eyes. The moon still glowed through the windows. The night was still quiet. But something was undeniably different inside her. A whisper through the palace. Word spread the next morning. The queen had experienced a dream so radiant, so unearthly, that even the palace sages felt a shiver of awe. The royal astrologers were summoned. They stepped into the queen's chamber with scrolls tucked beneath their arms, beads clicking softly in their hands. Their eyes held a mixture of curiosity and reverence. Queen Maya retold her dream, every detail of the elephant, every shimmer of light, every emotion that wrapped around her like a silken cloak. When she finished, silence hung in the air, thick and full. The oldest sage, his hair white as ash and his voice trembling with age, finally spoke. Your Majesty, dreams such as this appear only once in many thousands of years. A child of immeasurable radiance is seeking to enter this world. Another sage stepped forward, bowing deeply. This dream marks the descent of a great being, one who carries compassion as vast as the sky and wisdom as deep as the oceans.
The youngest sage, eyes glowing with excitement, whispered, "Such a child will either become a great king or a great spiritual guide, one who transforms the world." The room felt weightless. Even the curtains seemed to pause their movements, as though listening. Queen Maya placed a hand on her stomach and smiled softly. She felt it too. The sky that would not sleep. From that day onward, the palace observed something unusual. At night, the stars sparkled more vividly above Queen Maya's chamber. Some nights, they aligned so perfectly that they resembled a halo encircling the moon. Others, they stretched into patterns resembling lotus blossoms or flowing rivers of light. Birds performed unusual dances in the air. Trees leaned inward as if seeking to shelter Maya. Lotus ponds bloomed at odd hours, uncaring of sunrise or sunset. Even the animals in the palace grounds behaved with surprising gentleness. Lions lying beside deer, monkeys offering fruits to swans, horses lowering their heads when the queen walked past. It was as if the world itself recognized the preciousness of the life growing within her. King Shuddhodana watched all this in wonder. Though he was a ruler accustomed to order and discipline, he could not deny that something extraordinary was happening. He strengthened the palace guards, ordered musicians to play soothing melodies each evening, and doubled every comfort the queen might desire. Still, Maya remained serene, untouched by fear or worry. Her heart felt anchored by a calm deeper than the oceans. The journey toward Lumbini. As her time to give birth approached, Queen Maya followed the tradition of traveling to her childhood home. Surrounded by attendants and guarded by loyal soldiers, she journeyed northward through forests and fragrant groves. On the day of their arrival at the gardens of Lumbini, a sacred place filled with shimmering ponds, tall sal trees, and pathways draped in blossoms, the sky was a clear blue bowl without a single cloud. Birdsong filled the air. Butterflies rose in swirling columns, and a soft golden haze warmed every leaf and petal. Maya felt an unexpected surge of strength and asked her attendants to pause so she could walk among the gardens. She approached a tall sal tree whose branches swayed gently though no wind was present. With a peaceful smile, she placed her hand on one of its branches for support. At that moment, the world seemed to quiet itself. The birds paused. The leaves stopped trembling. The air grew still. And then, a glow, warm and soft, began to radiate around her. It expanded, filling the garden with a pearly luminescence. Attendants gasped softly, but did not dare move. Something sacred was unfolding.
A birth wrapped in light. In the midst of that golden aura, with the sal tree bending slightly as if bowing to honor her, Queen Maya gave birth. They say that the child emerged not in pain or turmoil, but in serenity, bathed in a gentle celestial radiance. The newborn's skin glowed with a faint golden sheen. His eyes opened the moment he entered the world, wide and calm, reflecting the sky as though they had known countless lifetimes already. Some legends say the child took 7 steps upon the soft earth, lotus flowers blooming beneath each step. Others say he simply gazed at the world with a depth far beyond comprehension. But all who were present agreed on one thing. There was no cry, no trembling, no fear. Only a profound silence, so peaceful that even the wind seemed to bow before it. The attendants, overwhelmed, sank to their knees. A beam of sunlight broke through the canopy of sal leaves, shining directly upon the newborn. The trees rustled lightly, as if whispering blessings. Birds returned to their branches and sang melodies that no human ear had ever heard before. The world seemed to welcome the child with open arms. The stars bowed that night.
That evening, as Queen Maya held the newborn prince against her chest, the sky performed one final miracle. The stars appeared brighter than ever, clustered, shimmering, vibrant. Some arranged themselves into arcs that resembled outstretched arms. Others formed lotus-like spirals. And in the direct center of the sky, a single bright star pulsed softly, as though bowing toward the earth below. The palace astrologers would later say it was an omen. A luminous soul has arrived. The heavens themselves recognize him. Queen Maya lifted her eyes to the sky, and for a moment she felt the universe breathe with her. The newborn prince stirred lightly in her arms, as though sensing the celestial gaze above him. She whispered to him, "You have come gently, little one, like moonlight touching quiet waters." The child's eyes, dark and deep like the night sea, blinked once, as if acknowledging her words. The whisper of destiny. King Shuddodana joined her, his usually firm expression softened by wonder and tenderness. He looked down at the child, then at the sky, then back at Maya. "He is unlike any child," he murmured. "No king, no warrior, no sage has been greeted by the heavens this way." Maya leaned her head against his shoulder. "It is enough," she replied softly, "that he has come in peace." Yet deep in her heart a quiet knowing echoed. This child was destined for a journey no prince had ever walked, one that would lead him far beyond palaces and crowns. For now, though, he simply slept in her arms, small, peaceful, and radiant. The stars bowed overhead, shimmering like a million tiny lanterns. The night wrapped the kingdom in velvet shadows. And the child who would one day be known as the Buddha dreamed his first dream.
Chapter 2. The Prince of Stillness. The young prince grows up surrounded by luxury, yet feeling a quiet emptiness. Dawn crept gently over Kapilavastu, its soft gold brushing the palace rooftops, slipping through carved windows, and warming the marble floors with a dreamlike glow. In the quiet hush before the palace stirred awake, a small boy walked barefoot along the corridor, his footsteps light, measured, almost soundless. This was Siddhartha, the luminous child born beneath a bowing sky. His attendants would often search for him in the early mornings, only to find him sitting beneath a blossoming tree or watching dust motes dance in a shaft of sunlight. Even at such a young age, he possessed a stillness that felt older than the palace walls, older perhaps than the kingdom itself. He didn't chase after toys. He didn't cry for sweets. He didn't demand attention. Instead, he watched, quietly, peacefully, with eyes that seemed to hold unspoken questions. The silk-wrapped world. The palace raised him in luxury unmatched by any child in the kingdom. Silk curtains swayed in his room like gentle spirits. Musicians played soft melodies each evening, hoping the delicate sounds might delight the prince. The kitchens prepared warm bowls of honeyed milk, fragrant rice, and foods from faraway lands, all arranged like edible art. Teachers came from distant kingdoms to recite poetry, kneel before maps, and teach the graceful movements of archery and the steadiness of the mind. Beautiful paintings adorned the walls, lotus ponds, noble kings, celestial beings drifting through clouds. Everywhere Siddhartha walked, servants lowered their heads, and the world bowed in courtesy. Yet even in all this splendor, something seemed to set him apart. While other children ran through the palace gardens with shouts of laughter, Siddhartha stood beneath the trees, listening to the wind weave its invisible path through branches. While noble families presented expensive toys carved in gold or inlaid with gemstones, he held them gently, smiled, and then placed them down, almost as if he felt how unnecessary they were. He was not unimpressed. He was simply untouched. There was a calmness about him, soft yet unshakable, like a lake undisturbed by the wind. Queen Maya's absence and a lingering echo. Siddhartha never knew the warmth of the mother who had brought him into the world. Queen Maya had passed away 7 days after his birth, leaving behind a silence deeper than grief itself. Though Aunt Mahaprajapati raised him with love, something in the prince's heart carried the faint echo of a presence he had never met, a softness felt more in dreams than in memory. Sometimes, in the quietest hours, the palace maids would find the young prince sitting on his bed, gazing through the moonlit window with a serene, almost wistful expression. Once, when asked what he was looking at, he answered gently, "I'm listening to someone who loves me." They thought he was speaking of the queen who raised him, but he wasn't. He was listening to the memory of a voice he had never heard. Even as a child, Siddhartha sensed the impermanence of things. A garden full of answers. One bright morning, the attendants found Siddhartha wandering into the palace gardens, where sunlight spilled through leaves like golden waterfalls. The boy approached a blooming rosebush and crouched beside it, quietly observing a small ant dragging a breadcrumb many times its size. He watched the ant with such intensity that even the palace guard, towering and armored, hesitated to interrupt. "What do you see, young prince?" the guard finally asked. Siddhartha did not look up. "The ant is working so hard," he whispered. "It walks such a long road, but where does that road end?" The guard blinked, unsure how to respond. Most children would have tried to crush the ant or giggled at its zigzag movements, but this child, this prince, was studying it as though reading a sacred text. He continued, voice soft, "Everything moves, everything tries, but I wonder what everything is moving toward." The guard shivered, though the air was warm. Even the flowers around Siddhartha seemed to lean in, listening. The king's fear. When King Shuddhodana heard what the attendants had witnessed, he felt unease coil in his chest. The sages had predicted 2 possible futures for Siddhartha. He would either become a great king who would rule the world, or a great spiritual guide who would renounce it. The king had chosen which destiny he wanted. The prince must stay. The prince must rule. Shuddhodana ordered the palace to conceal anything unpleasant, anything sorrowful, anything that might make the boy question the world. He commanded, "No illness, no aging, no poverty, no death shall ever reach the eyes of my son." Thus, the palace became a world wrapped in silk, a carefully crafted illusion of endless happiness. But illusions cannot hide everything, not from a child who sees differently. The Prince of Stillness. By the time Siddhartha reached boyhood, everyone in the palace called him the Prince of Stillness. He moved through the grand halls with a grace too quiet for his age. He listened more than he spoke. He smiled rarely, but when he did, it was the kind of smile that made people feel seen, understood, and strangely comforted. One afternoon, his tutors gathered in the study, expecting the prince to discuss mathematics and ancient literature. Instead, they found him staring at a clay pot placed carelessly on a windowsill. Before they could speak, Siddhartha pointed at it. "This pot will break soon." The tutors exchanged puzzled looks. "How do you know, Your Highness?" Siddhartha lifted the pot gently and showed them a thin crack along its base. "Everything that is made must someday unmake," he said softly. "But I wonder, why do we try so hard to hold things together when they wish to change?" The oldest tutor, wise but not enlightened, stammered. "It is natural to preserve what is precious, Prince. Change can bring loss." Siddhartha looked out the window. "But change also brings truth." His tutors fell silent. Even they could not teach him what he already seemed to understand. The growing quiet in his heart. As Siddhartha grew stronger and taller, his gaze grew deeper. Though surrounded by dances, feasts, jewels, and celebration, he often felt an unexplained emptiness, a soft, hollow space within him, like a chamber waiting for an answer. He did not feel sad. He did not feel lonely. He simply sensed that the world around him was incomplete. During banquets, when musicians played their flutes and dancers twirled like ribbons caught in the wind, he watched everything with gentle detachment. Once, his cousin Nanda tugged on his hand. "Brother, why don't you dance? Everyone is happier when they dance." Siddhartha smiled with kindness. "I like watching the happiness of others, but the feeling inside me is different. It is quiet, too quiet to dance." Nanda frowned. "Quiet? Why quiet?" Siddhartha looked at the lanterns glowing above them. "Because I am listening for something." He paused. "But I don't know what it is yet." The Festival of Blossoms. One spring, the palace celebrated the Festival of Blossoms, a grand event where thousands of lotus lanterns floated on the river like tiny drifting stars. Children laughed as they released their lanterns. Musicians lined the riverbanks, filling the air with warm melodies. Blossoms of every color rained from baskets carried by maidens dressed in turquoise silk. Siddhartha stood by the river, lantern in hand, watching the glowing lights drift away. A young servant girl approached, offering him a bright red lotus lantern. "You should release one too, Prince," she said timidly. "It will bring you joy." Siddhartha looked at his lantern closely. Its flower petals glowed with a flame so small and fragile that even the breeze felt dangerous. "If the lantern sinks," Siddhartha asked softly, "does its wish disappear too?" The girl blinked. I don't know." Siddhartha knelt by the river, letting his fingers hover just above the water. "Things rise." He dipped his hand. "And things fall." He lifted it again, droplets glittering like tiny diamonds. "But where do wishes go?" Before the girl could answer, the prince released his lantern, slowly, gently, watching it drift away until it merged with the glowing current. His heart, however, felt no joy, no sadness, only the same quiet emptiness. A question that would not leave. That night, Siddhartha sat on his balcony, watching the moon climb above the palace. The stars shimmered faintly, but something felt different from the night he was born. Now the heavens seemed farther away, less bright, as though they too sensed the quiet growing inside him. A breeze brushed across his face. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. What is missing? The question rose again, like a feather drifting upward. He had everything: warmth, family, luxury, safety. Yet deep inside him, something felt incomplete, as if the world shown to him was only the outer shell of a much larger mystery. He could not name the feeling, but he could not escape it either. It lived in the silence between his breaths. It lingered in moments when no one was watching. It was the beginning of a great longing. A glimpse beyond the palace walls. One afternoon, Siddhartha wandered near the edge of the palace grounds, where the gold-painted gates towered toward the blue sky. He wasn't permitted to leave, but he felt drawn to the boundary as if something beyond it were calling him quietly. He placed his hand on the warm metal. On the other side, life moved freely, uncontrolled, unmasked. He heard faint echoes of people living their lives, merchants calling out prices, children laughing in dusty streets, wheels of wooden carts creaking, distant bells chiming. It sounded real, untamed, true. A longing awakened in his chest, blooming like a hidden lotus. "What lies beyond these gates?" he whispered. He received no answer, only the wind brushing gently through the bars, like a hand tugging him forward. The Prince of Stillness and the emptiness he carried. Years passed. Siddhartha grew in grace, wisdom, and gentle beauty. The palace adored him. His father guarded him fiercely. His tutors praised him. His companions admired him. And yet, behind his calm eyes,
A vast emptiness expanded, slowly, quietly, like a horizon growing further and further away. It was not sadness, nor fear, nor longing for wealth or power. It was a deeper kind of yearning, a question without words, a hunger for truth, a desire to understand why anything lived, why anything ended, why hearts loved and why hearts broke. The world around him glowed with beauty and riches, but something inside him whispered, "There is more. There is something you have not seen yet, something the palace cannot show you." And though he did not yet know it, this whisper, this quiet emptiness, would one day become the spark that changed not only his destiny, but the destiny of the entire world. For now, he remained the Prince of Stillness, a boy wrapped in silk, wandering through gardens of illusion, listening to questions he did not yet know how to answer. And above him, the stars watched, waiting.
Chapter 3: 4 Gates, 4 Truths. The Encounters That Broke the Golden World. Night had cooled the palace stones, and a hush lay upon Kapilavastu like a veil of blue silk. Prince Siddhartha, now a young man with clear eyes and a mind always listening for something unseen, rose before dawn. He often did. Sleep felt too small for the questions pressing at his heart. The walls of the palace, lacquered, polished, adorned with jasmine, were meant to keep him comfortable. Instead, they felt like soft, beautiful boundaries he was not meant to cross. But this morning, fate itself seemed to lift a corner of that boundary. A faint breeze curled under his window, carrying with it the scent of dust, wood smoke, and something older, a hint of the world beyond the palace gates. It stirred in him a longing brighter than curiosity, deeper than restlessness. It felt like memory of a life he had not yet lived. He dressed simply, leaving behind the embroidered tunics and golden belts chosen by his attendants. He chose a robe of plain white cotton and tied it himself. His reflection shimmered dimly in a bronze mirror. A prince, yes, but one with questions large enough to eclipse the title. When he stepped into the courtyard, his charioteer Channa was already waiting, as if he had sensed the prince's desire to wander before it had been spoken. "You wish to see the city, my lord?" Channa asked quietly. Siddhartha nodded. "I wish to see life," he answered. Channa hesitated. King Suddhodana had ordered the palace attendants to shield the prince from anything unpleasant, anything sorrowful, anything that might disturb his peace. But Channa had served Siddhartha since childhood. He could not refuse the young man whose kindness softened every command into a request. He bowed. "Then let us go where your heart leads." And so, as dawn brushed the horizon in pale gold, Prince Siddhartha stepped into his chariot. The horses snorted, eager, and together they glided toward the first gate. The first gate, the old man. The city beyond the gate stirred with morning life. Merchants rolled open their stalls, potters began to turn their wheels. Children chased roosters along dusty paths. Yet it was none of this that claimed Siddhartha's gaze. It was a figure bent like a drying reed. An old man shuffled toward them, leaning heavily on a wooden staff. His skin was wrinkled as bark, his spine curved, his breath thin and trembling. His hands shook with every step. It seemed as if even light weighed upon him. Siddhartha stared, astonished. "What is wrong with him?" he whispered. Channa's face tightened. He had hoped to avoid this moment, but fate stood plainly on the road. "My prince, he is old." "Old," Siddhartha repeated, as if tasting a new, strange word. "The years weaken all men. Youth fades, strength dries. Every person, if he lives long enough, becomes as you see there." Siddhartha felt the world tilt slightly. "Every person?" "Yes, my lord." Even me?" Channa lowered his eyes. "Yes." A silence like a deep lake opened inside Siddhartha. He had lived in a palace where time seemed to pause, where flowers were replaced before they wilted, and laughter was arranged like music.
He had never seen age, never imagined that the body, so full of energy and promise, could be undone slowly day by day. As they passed, the old man looked up. His eyes, cloudy yet gentle, met the prince's. In them, Siddhartha saw something he could not name: acceptance and a profound loneliness. The prince's heart tightened. "We hide this from ourselves," he murmured, "but truth walks on the same road we do." He looked back again, as if unwilling to let the moment slip into the distance. And thus, through the first gate, Siddhartha encountered the truth of aging.
The second gate, the sick man. Channa guided the chariot onward, hoping the next street would be lighter, more cheerful. But the world was in no mood to spare them. A few roads ahead, under the shade of a neem tree, lay a man trembling violently. His body was thin, his face gaunt, his skin marked with sores. A woman knelt beside him, cooling his forehead with a damp cloth, whispering prayers into his unhearing ears. Siddhartha gasped, "What suffering is this?" Channa swallowed hard. "Illness, my prince." "Does this happen often?" "Often enough," Channa admitted. "Disease visits rich and poor, strong and weak. No door can bar it." Siddhartha climbed down from the chariot. He approached the sick man slowly, with reverence, as though he were gazing at some sacred script of the universe written upon human flesh. "What causes this?" he asked softly. Channa answered from behind him. "The body is fragile. It can break as easily as a pot or a sapling. Pain is part of the world." Siddhartha touched his own chest, feeling the steady beat beneath his ribs. "And this too awaits all?" "Yes, my lord." The prince felt a chill seep into his bones, not of fear, but of realization. The palace had taught him that life was a festival. The city had taught him, in a single morning, that life was also a struggle. The woman tending the sick man looked up. Her eyes, tired yet full of devotion, met Siddhartha's. The prince bowed to her gently. "Your care is beautiful," he said. Her lips trembled at the kindness. Siddhartha returned to the chariot in silence. Thus, through the second gate, he encountered the truth of illness. The third gate, the corpse. Channa tried to turn back toward the palace, but Siddhartha stopped him. "No, we go on. I must see what life holds." So they continued toward the western quarter of the city. There, on a quiet road, a procession moved slowly. 4 men carried a wooden stretcher, upon which lay a body wrapped in white linen. Family members followed, heads bowed, voices murmuring prayers carried away by the wind. Siddhartha felt his breath leave him. What is happening? Channa closed his eyes in sorrow. "It is a funeral, my lord." Siddhartha's gaze fixed upon the still shape under the cloth. "And the man beneath the linen, where has he gone?" "He has died," Channa whispered. "When life leaves, the body becomes empty. This fate awaits all who are born." Siddhartha felt the world constrict. Age could weaken, illness could torment, but death ended all questions, all joys, all dreams. "Is there no escape?" he asked, voice breaking. Channa answered with the honesty of a man who loved his prince too much to offer lies. "No escape, my lord. Not for kings, not for beggars." The funeral passed them slowly. A child cried softly. An old woman weaned heavily on another's arm. Hearts broke in silence all around. A great compassion surged through Siddhartha, so immense he thought it might tear his chest open. How fragile life was! How easily extinguished! Thus, through the third gate, the prince encountered the truth of death. The fourth gate, the ascetic. The sun was high now, but the weight of the morning sat cold upon Siddhartha's shoulders. He told Channa to continue. One more gate, one more truth. Channa obeyed. Near the northern edge of the city, where fields opened toward distant forests, they encountered a man unlike any the prince had ever seen. He wore no fine clothes. His robe was patched. His feet were dusty. His body was thin but not sickly, lean with purpose. His eyes were calm, so calm they seemed like still pools reflecting the sky. He walked alone, with neither fear nor attachment, like one who had stepped out of the world yet remained within it. Siddhartha felt drawn to him. "Who is he?" the prince asked. Channa bowed his head respectfully. "An ascetic, one who has renounced wealth, pleasure, and property to seek freedom from suffering." Siddhartha stared, astonished. "Freedom? Is that possible?" The ascetic paused, sensing their presence. He turned and greeted them with a peaceful smile. There was no greed in his eyes, no fear, no sorrow. Instead, he radiated a quiet joy Siddhartha had never seen, even in the palace where happiness was manufactured like fine silk. "Why do you live this way?" Siddhartha asked gently. The ascetic bowed. "Because all things age, fall sick, and die, noble prince. I seek a truth beyond these things, a way to end suffering." "A way to end suffering?" Siddhartha repeated, awe softening his voice. "Does such a path exist?" The ascetic held his palms together. "I do not know it yet, but I walk toward it, and walking toward truth brings peace." Peace. The word fell into Siddhartha's heart like a seed into fertile soil. He bowed deeply to the ascetic, more deeply than royalty typically bowed to anyone. "May you find what you seek," he whispered. "And may you," the ascetic replied. Thus, through the fourth gate, Siddhartha encountered the truth of renunciation, that one could seek liberation not by escaping life, but by understanding it. The prince who returned changed. As the chariot turned back toward the palace, Siddhartha was silent, not with confusion, but with awakening. He had left in the morning as a prince curious about the world. He returned as a man who had glimpsed the astonishing, painful, beautiful reality of existence. Old age, illness, death, and the possibility of freedom. By the time the palace walls rose again around him, Siddhartha knew that the golden world of his father could no longer contain him. The questions inside him had grown too large, too luminous, too urgent. He walked through the palace corridors slowly, his mind echoing with the four truths revealed to him. If suffering touches all beings, then there must be a path to end it. The seed had sprouted. A destiny had awakened. The prince who stepped through the gates of Kapilavastu that morning was not the same one who returned. And all the heavens, watching quietly from the edges of the sky, knew. The wheel of Dharma had begun to turn. Chapter 4. The Breaking of the Golden Cage. The night Siddhartha walked away from everything. Night arrived softly in Kapilavastu, laying its velvet shadow over the palace roofs and quiet gardens. Lanterns flickered like small golden moons, swaying in the warm breeze. Inside the grand halls, musicians had finished their evening melodies, attendants had withdrawn into silence, and the world prepared to sleep. Yet Prince Siddhartha could not sleep. The four truths he had witnessed beyond the palace gates, age, illness, death, and the path of renunciation, echoed inside him like a steady, distant drum. Every moment since that day had been colored by those revelations. Every smile he gave felt weighted. Every silk garment, every polished floor, every fragrant meal felt like a distraction from something vast and urgent. He stood alone on his balcony as the moon climbed into the sky, its pale light silvering the gardens below. The palace was beautiful, too beautiful. It felt like a golden box whose bars were made of comfort, privilege, and illusion. Beyond those bars, the world aged. Beyond those bars, people suffered. Beyond those bars, truth waited. Siddhartha's hands tightened on the railing. "I cannot live wrapped in silk while others live wrapped in sorrow," he whispered. The night carried his words away like seeds. A palace asleep, a mind awakening.
Inside the halls, dancers moved in soft, graceful circles, performing one last evening offering of music and motion. It was a ritual arranged by King Suddhodana, who feared the prince's growing restlessness. He believed beauty could soothe the questions storming inside his son. But Siddhartha watched without seeing. The dance was flawless, but his heart was elsewhere. Walking past the four gates again, watching the old man bend, the sick man tremble, the corpse lie still beneath its shroud. He could not unsee what he had seen. And so, as the dancers spun like falling petals, a deep, sorrowful understanding settled over him. This life is not mine. This palace is not my path. This comfort is a dream that blinds me. When the music finally ended, the dancers bowed. The prince nodded politely, then walked away with steps as light as mist. He did not return to his chamber. Instead, he walked through the palace corridors, the same ones he had walked since childhood. But tonight they felt different. They felt temporary. They felt like memories wearing the shape of walls. His footsteps echoed softly. Attendants were asleep. Torches burned low, flickering gently. The palace felt like a world holding its breath. As he wandered, he realized something profound. He was not leaving because he did not love his family. He was leaving because his love was too large to remain contained here. Sorrow and clarity mingled inside him. He went to one final place before departing. Yashodhara and the sleeping child. Siddhartha entered the quiet chamber where his wife, Yashodhara, slept beside their infant son. The baby, Rahula, lay curled like a tiny moon beneath soft blankets, his breath light as the whisper of a leaf. Siddhartha's chest tightened. He knelt beside the bed, looking at the two beings he loved most. The intimacy of the moment washed over him. The warmth of candlelight dancing on Yashodhara's face, the gentle rise and fall of the child's breath, the faint scent of lotus oil lingering in the air. He wanted to hold his son, to lift him one last time before leaving, but he did not. He feared that if he touched the child, he would never find the strength to walk away. He brushed a lock of hair from Yashodhara's forehead. "Forgive me," he whispered. "I leave not from lack of love, but because I seek a path that may someday free all beings, including you." His voice trembled, but his resolve did not. "I must understand suffering. Only then can I end it." He bowed deeply, one final silent farewell, and rose. When he stepped out of the room, he felt as though his heart remained behind, resting beside the sleeping forms he loved more than his own breath. But his path was set. His destiny had awakened.
Channa and the White Horse. Outside the palace walls, beneath a sky woven with stars, Channa awaited him. The loyal charioteer stood beside Kantaka, the prince's noble white horse. It seemed Channa had known, long before Siddhartha spoke, that this night would come. "My lord," Channa whispered, "are you certain?" Siddhartha placed a hand on Channa's shoulder. "I must go. The truth burns in me. I cannot remain behind these walls, pretending life is untouched by suffering." Channa's eyes glimmered with emotion. "Then I will go with you." Siddhartha shook his head gently. "No, this journey is mine alone. You must return. The kingdom will need you. My family will need you." Channa bowed his head, tears gathering silently. Siddhartha stroked Kantaka's mane. The horse neighed softly, as though sensing the weight of the moment. Together, horse and rider had shared many journeys, but none as final as this. "Tonight," Siddhartha said, "you carry me to the beginning of the end of suffering." Kantaka lowered his head in solemn understanding. With a quiet exhale, Siddhartha mounted the horse. And the world seemed to pause. The ride beyond the gates. Under the moonlight, Kantaka's hooves made almost no sound as they approached the east gate, the gate through which Siddhartha had first glimpsed the truths of life. The guards slept, their torches dim, unaware that the destiny of the world was walking past them. As the horse stepped into the open fields beyond the city, Siddhartha looked back one last time. The palace glowed softly like a golden jewel resting in the dark. "It held me gently," he whispered, "but even a gentle nest becomes a cage when the wings grow."
He turned away. The road ahead was uncertain, but inside his heart a brightness arose, a calm flame, as steady as the stars above. It guided him forward. He rode through forests where fireflies floated like drifting embers. He crossed streams where moonlight rippled on the water. He passed sleeping villages, silent fields, and distant hills. The deeper he moved into the night, the lighter he felt, as if shedding layers of identity with each breath. Prince, heir, noble, protected child of the palace. He rode until the first faint glow of dawn touched the horizon. The Great Renunciation. When he reached the edge of a quiet forest, Siddhartha stopped. He dismounted, placing a gentle kiss on Kantaka's brow. "Thank you," he murmured. "You have carried me farther than any prince deserves." Kantaka whinnied softly, eyes full of devotion. Channa, who had followed a short distance behind to witness the moment, stepped forward hurriedly, falling to his knees. "Please, my lord, do not leave without your loyal servant." Siddhartha lifted him gently by the shoulders. "Return to the palace, Channa. Take Kantaka home. Tell them I left not in anger, but in love. Tell them I seek a truth beyond birth and death." Channa wept openly. "How will you live? You have nothing." Siddhartha smiled softly. "I have the question, and it will guide me better than wealth." Then, with a calmness that seemed larger than the sky, the prince removed his jeweled earrings, his bracelets, his royal ornaments. Finally, he took off his princely robes, silks embroidered with gold, and handed them to Channa. He stood wearing only a simple cloth like any wandering seeker. A prince no more. A seeker reborn. He took a knife and cut off his long black hair, the emblem of his royal lineage. The severed locks fell to the ground, carried away by the wind, like old identities dissolving. The world seemed to hold its breath. Channa bowed deeply, unable to speak, tears streaming. Siddhartha placed a gentle hand on his friend's head. "Go, serve them well. My path leads elsewhere." Channa mounted Kantaka, and with a final look of sorrow and devotion, he rode back toward Kapilavastu. Siddhartha stepped barefoot into the forest.
The first dawn of freedom. The sun rose slowly, sending its first rays through the canopy. They touched Siddhartha's face, warming him with the promise of a new beginning. He felt lighter, so light it seemed his heartbeat had changed rhythm. The world around him felt vivid, the scent of damp earth, the chant of waking birds, the whisper of leaves shifting in the breeze. This forest was not a palace. It was not safe. It was not comfortable, but it was truth. Siddhartha breathed deeply, letting the morning air fill him. "No more illusions," he murmured. "No more walls between myself and the world." The road ahead would be difficult. The path would test his body, his mind, his spirit. But he felt no fear. He felt purpose. With steady steps, he began walking, toward teachers, toward truth, toward enlightenment. Toward the moment when suffering itself would bow before understanding. And thus, before the world fully woke, Siddhartha Gautama, the prince who had everything, walked into the unknown to seek what no one had yet found. The golden cage was behind him. The great journey had begun. Chapter 5. 6 years in the forests of silence, where hunger, shadows, and stillness taught their final lessons. The forest greeted Siddhartha like an ancient, patient guardian. Its towering sal trees rose like pillars of a forgotten temple, and every morning the mist swirled around their trunks as though the world were whispering secrets into the prince-turned-wanderer's ears. Here, the air was colder, the ground was rougher, and time seemed to stretch like an endless river. For Siddhartha, this quiet wilderness became home. No palace walls, no silks or servants. Only earth, wind, hunger, and the long echo of his own breath. Teachers of the old path. Word spread quickly that a noble seeker walked the forests. Soon, Siddhartha encountered 2 renowned sages, Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta, masters of deep meditative states.
Their hermitages were simple shelters made of leaves and branches. Their disciples lived on roots, berries, and the silence of long contemplation. Alara Kalama greeted Siddhartha with soft astonishment. "You carry the poise of one who was born to command," he said, "but your eyes carry the hunger of one who seeks to understand." Siddhartha bowed. "Teach me your path." And so he learned. He sat beneath trees with his legs crossed and his spine straight as the sages taught him to ascend through layers of consciousness. Beyond form, beyond senses, beyond breath itself. Days, then weeks, passed in profound meditation. His body became still, his heartbeat slowed like the steady drum of distant thunder. Alara Kalama was amazed. "You equal me," he said one evening. "Stay here, guide my disciples with me." Siddhartha dipped his head with gratitude, but his heart remained restless. "I have reached what you have reached, teacher," he said, "but suffering is not ended. Old age, sickness, and death still chase us like shadows at dusk." And so he left, still searching. Under Udaka Ramaputta, he mastered even higher states, the formless realms where consciousness felt endless and clear as empty sky. Yet again, when he reached the level of his teacher, a quiet dissatisfaction stirred. "This is profound," he said, "but it is not freedom." The sages bowed to him as he left, recognizing a seeker no ordinary path could satisfy. The silent forest of Uruvela. Siddhartha wandered deeper into the wild, through fields where wild deer grazed, through quiet riverbanks where lotus petals drifted like pink clouds. Finally, he reached a forest beside the Neranjara River, Uruvela, a place serene and haunting, filled with stillness. "This," he whispered, "feels right." The river murmured softly. The sand sparkled pale gold beneath the sun. And the forest seemed to cradle him in its vast silence. Here, he decided, he would push his quest to its furthest edge. He would test every path humans had ever walked in search of liberation. A body fading, a mind unbroken. One afternoon, after days without food, Siddhartha attempted to meditate but collapsed beside a tree. The world spun. His breath thinned. The sky wavered like a shimmering veil. He lay on the ground, his body unable to rise. He felt as fragile as a leaf in winter. When he tried to stand, darkness swarmed around him, and he fell again, his head striking a root. For a moment, everything dissolved into a soft, suffocating blackness. He hovered at the edge of consciousness. From somewhere deep inside, a faint voice whispered, "Is this the path? Is breaking the body the same as freeing the mind?" The forest around him blurred into dream and memory. He saw the old man once more, the sick man, the corpse. He saw his father's anxious face, his wife's sleeping silhouette, his baby son's tiny fingers curled like lotus buds. And then he saw something else, something gentler. A memory glowed within him. He was a child again, sitting beneath a rose apple tree during a spring festival. The noise of the crowd faded as he entered a natural, effortless stillness. His breath became soft. His mind became bright and peaceful, untouched by effort or pain. It was the first meditation he had ever known. Pure, kind, balanced. The memory shone like a lantern in the dark. Deep inside, something clicked. This is the path. Not torture, not self-harm, not destruction. The middle way. The realization came like a cool breeze brushing across a fevered body. He inhaled weakly. He exhaled slowly. In that fragile moment, suspended between life and death, Siddhartha understood. You cannot free the mind by chaining the body. You cannot gain clarity through suffering. You cannot awaken by killing the self you seek to liberate. A single tear rolled down his cheek, soft, quiet, filled not with sorrow, but with profound understanding. The path of extremes was over.
Sujata and the bowl of milk rice. As Siddhartha lay weak near the river, a young village woman named Sujata came to make an offering beneath a sacred tree. She saw the emaciated figure collapsed near the water.
At first, she thought he was a spirit of the forest, pale and glowing faintly like a fading ember. When she realized he was human, fragile, starving, barely breathing, her heart tightened. She hurried home and prepared a bowl of warm milk rice, fragrant with ghee and sweetness. Carrying it in both hands, she approached him. "Holy One," she whispered, "please accept this offering." Siddhartha opened his eyes. The world sharpened into gentle clarity. The kindness in her voice touched him deeper than any ritual or doctrine. He accepted the bowl. The warm, creamy rice soothed his throat, awakened his strength, and nourished him in a way he had almost forgotten. His 5 ascetic companions watched from afar. "He has fallen," they whispered. "He abandons the holy path." But Siddhartha felt something profoundly different. He felt alive. He felt clear. He felt balanced. For the first time in 6 years, he could breathe without pain. The middle way had begun. Letting go of the old path. That evening, he walked into the river. The water was cool against his skin. He placed the empty bowl gently onto the flowing current. "If this path is true," he murmured, "let the bowl travel upstream." The bowl floated forward, drifting gracefully. Then, carried by a strange, subtle whirlpool, it turned and moved upstream, gliding against the flow like a lotus petal lifted by unseen wind. Siddhartha bowed his head. The world had spoken. He stepped from the water with renewed resolve. The 5 ascetics the part. When he returned to his simple shelter, the 5 ascetics stared at him with disappointment, even anger. They saw nourishment as weakness. They saw compassion as indulgence. "You have abandoned the holy struggle," they said. "You eat like ordinary men. You will never find the truth." Siddhartha bowed gently. "I have not abandoned the path," he said. "I have abandoned the mistake." But they turned away, leaving him alone in the forest. He watched them go without bitterness. "May you find peace," he whispered. Then he walked deeper into the woods, feeling lighter with each step, as if shedding the last remnants of illusion. A new strength awakens. That night, as the wind whispered through the leaves, Siddhartha sat beneath a great fig tree. His body was weak, but his mind shone with clarity. He felt neither hunger nor fullness, neither suffering nor pleasure. He felt balance. A soft calm settled over him, permeating the forest like moonlight soaking into the earth. The stars twinkled above, and for the first time in many years, he felt the gentle embrace of stillness. True stillness, not forced or extreme. He looked at the sky. "The middle way," he whispered. "This is the path that neither indulges nor destroys, a path open to all beings." His heart beat steady and clear. Tomorrow he would sit beneath the Bodhi tree. Tomorrow he would face Mara, the tempter. Tomorrow he would not rise until the deepest truth revealed itself. But tonight he simply breathed. Alive, balanced, awakening. Chapter 6. The Bowl of Milk. The middle way reveals itself. The dawn that broke over the forest that day was unlike any other. It rose slowly, shyly, as though hesitant to disturb the man sitting motionless beneath the whispering branches. Siddhartha's body, thin as a dry leaf, frail as a breath, seemed almost to merge with the roots and soil around him. His ribs traced the outline of his suffering. His breath came shallow, like a fading ember. For 6 long years, he had starved the body in pursuit of truth. For 6 long years, he thought that if he could conquer flesh, he could conquer sorrow. For 6 long years, he had walked deeper and deeper into the forest, into silence, into a discipline that left him hovering at the edge of death. Yet this morning, as the world softened into light, something within him shifted. Not a voice, not a vision, only a question, small, clear, unignorable. Is this the way? His eyelids trembled. A breeze bent the grasses around him. Somewhere, beyond the trees, a village stirred awake. Siddhartha had pushed his body beyond its limits. He had eaten so little that now even lifting a hand felt like trying to lift a mountain. His legs trembled, his heartbeat slowed, his sight swam in pale halos. He had believed that if he could kill desire, he could kill suffering. But instead, he had only invited suffering into his bones. The forest seemed to sigh with him. Once, years ago, he had walked through the palace gardens, surrounded by music, color, and delight, and felt a loneliness he could not explain. Today, he sat starving under a tree in the vast wilderness and felt another kind of loneliness, one carved out by his own extremes. He closed his eyes, and in the darkness behind his eyelids, memory rose. His mother's gentle gaze, his father's hope, the palace walls that tried to protect him from sorrow, the world he now longed to save. Everything flickered like lantern flames at dusk. He reached the edge of consciousness. Then darkness claimed him. His body fell sideways, collapsing against the earth. The birds stopped singing. The wind stilled. Even the leaves seemed to lean closer, listening for breath. For a long moment, Siddhartha lay unmoving. But fate did not intend for him to die that morning. The world had waited far too long for the truth he had yet to find. Not far from the riverbank, a young village woman named Sujata walked barefoot through the fields. She carried a small clay bowl, warm with freshly cooked milk rice, fragrant with sweetness and kindness. Every year, on this same morning, she offered food to a local tree spirit she believed protected her family. Today felt special. The air shimmered. The light on the grass seemed impossibly soft. She paused. Her eyes drifted toward the forest as if guided by something unseen, something gentle, urgent, and filled with compassion. She stepped closer to the trees, the clay bowl cupped in both hands. The forest opened its path to her. Sunlight caught in the dust of her footsteps. Birds parted their song to make space for the quiet. And then she saw him. A man, skeletal, starving, collapsed beside a tree. Sujata gasped. He looked almost otherworldly, as though carved from both suffering and serenity. His skin clung to his bones like silk stretched thin. His hair fell in dark matted waves. Yet his face, oh, his face, held a peace she had never seen even in sleeping infants. A peace deeper than dreams. A stillness older than mountains. Without thinking, Sujata knelt beside him. "He is not a spirit," she whispered to herself, "but he glows like one." Gently, she lifted his head into her lap. His skin was cold, his breath almost imperceptible. A fear tightened in her chest, fear that she had come too late. Then the faintest exhale brushed against her hand. He lived. His eyelids fluttered, opening slowly, as if through great effort. His gaze met hers, deep, dark, clear, a gaze that held no fear, no desperation, only acceptance. Not of death, but of life. She bowed respectfully. "Holy One," she murmured, though she did not know who he was, "please accept this offering." She extended the bowl of milk rice. Siddhartha stared at it for a long moment. His breath trembled. For years he had refused nourishment. To eat now felt like betrayal, to his vow, to his practice, to the path he believed he must walk. But in the stillness of that moment, a simple truth illuminated him. Starvation was not wisdom. Suffering was not purity. And death could not reveal the nature of life. His hand, thin, shaking, lifted slowly. He accepted the bowl. And Sujata, with humility and tenderness, supported his arm, helping him bring the first spoonful to his lips. Warm, sweet, gentle. The food slid down his throat like a miracle. The second spoonful reached his stomach like sunlight warming cold stone. His vision brightened, the world sharpened, the colors of the trees deepened. As he continued to eat, slowly, reverently, he felt strength returning to his limbs, life returning to his breath. It was as if the bowl held not just nourishment, but mercy. When the bowl was empty, Sujata bowed deeply. "May your path be blessed," she whispered. "May you find what you seek." Then she rose, leaving the bull beside him, and returned to her village without looking back, never knowing that she had just fed the man who would one day feed the world with truth.
Siddhartha remained seated beneath the tree, eyes half closed, breath deepening. The nourishment spread through him in waves, gentle at first, then with growing warmth, lighting the once dark corners of his mind. For the first time in years, he felt clarity bloom like lotus petals unfolding in sunlight. The forest around him shimmered with understanding. The river's slow murmur spoke of balance. The towering trees spoke of resilience. The earth beneath him held both strength and softness. And in the midst of this living, breathing world, Siddhartha realized he had been wrong. Not in seeking truth, but in believing truth lived only at one extreme. Neither indulgence nor self-destruction held the answer. Life moved like the river, not too fast, not too slow, not too harsh, not too soft, not denying the body, not obeying its every demand. A harmony, not a war, between desire and discipline. This was the middle way. He inhaled deeply, letting the new understanding settle inside him like a bright seed. The forest's cool breeze brushed his skin, and for the first time in years, he felt alive, truly, fully alive. His strength was still small, but it was real. His mind was calm, but no longer clouded by pain. His heart was quiet, but no longer hollow. He felt ready, ready for the final journey, ready for the truth hidden just beyond suffering, ready for the night that would change all worlds. Siddhartha rose slowly, placing Sujata's empty bowl beside a stone. He turned toward the direction of the great Bodhi tree, the tree that called to him like a distant heartbeat. The sun climbed the sky behind him, casting his shadow long across the forest floor. He would walk the middle way. He would face Mara's illusions. He would pierce the veil of sorrow. And soon, very soon, he would awaken.